another episode of Anavarna. My name's Ananya Bharadwaj. Albert Einstein once said, education is what remains after one has forgotten everything he has learned in school. I bet that confuses you now. Yes, he did say education is what remains after one has forgotten everything he's learned in school. A tiny bit of confusion always wanders in our minds when we primarily differentiate between the words education and knowledge. So I'd like to put it forward as education is the process of gaining knowledge. Today, with us, we have someone special who has provided extensive knowledge to thousands of people through his methods of education. I can proudly say that I'm one of his students. And for that, I'm forever grateful. I'd like to welcome Professor M.S.K. Narahari Babu. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, sir. A Rashtriya Shiksha Ratan awardee who spent 48 years in the field of education, 29 years as a HOD of the chemistry department in Marimalapa, and then became a founder principal of Chinmaya, following which he became the founder principal of Sadvidya PU College. He is an avid reader, a Carnatic music lover, a sports enthusiast who watches and enjoys every sport from cricket all the way to Formula One, and is a hordophile. We could also say he's a drama aficionado, for he's traveled across to take part in plays. I could go on, but if I had to describe him in 2 words, it most definitely would be modest and disciplined. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, Ananya.
Out of all the sciences that you could have chosen, why did you pick chemistry? What brought about this abundant love for the subject? Where was that one spark that led you to where you are today? And at what age did you decide to step into the field of teaching? And why did you choose teaching?
Ananya, I would like to tell you, my generation never made the choice, because the choice was made by the parents or their friends or their offsprings. It is honest opinion I am giving you. After my PUC, what I wanted to do, I never decided. My father said, I think his friends guided him. The demand was for chemistry and physics those days. Engineering colleges are very few. Only one I think we had in our district. So most of the students, bright students, went to science, that too, physics and chemistry. So the number of seats in chemistry were very few, very limited, and I chose chemistry, and the spark came later on. I had wonderful teachers in our college, many of them really wonderful. One among them, I can name him, Professor Nambi. He was teaching physical chemistry. He was always smiling. He used to make everything so simple. We used to love the entire hour because we never felt bored in that hour. He used to keep us smiling, but at the same time, he used to teach the difficult subjects, make it so simple. We used to love him a lot. I think he provided a spark. Then I decided I am going to take up post-graduation in chemistry. You asked about when did I decide to be a teacher. My generation did not have that decision-making ability. I won't say decision-making ability was not there, but we were always guided by our elders. So in my case, what happened when I was in high school, I still remember I was in 8th standard. I had a wonderful English teacher. Once he called me and told me, I don't know why he felt, what is the reason, I don't know. He called me and said, Narahari, I think you can become a very good teacher. I wanted to be a teacher. I didn't ask him why, how you felt it and all that. I was too young, I didn't decide about it, but I think my college teachers made that change. When I saw them teaching, when I saw my physical chemistry teacher teaching, I said, I want to become a teacher, because he was loved by everyone. I also felt that one day I must be loved by all my students. That the day I took a decision that I'm going to be a teacher. In the 1960s, the late 60s, a person coming out of the best institution in India, I studied at the best institution in India, would have got any job. Actually, my principal said, you go to the bank, I'm recommending you for American bank. I said, no, I'm going to be a teacher. I decided to be a teacher. I have no regrets. I still enjoy teaching.
That's wonderful. After so many years, and you still absolutely love what you do. That's what we are all aiming to have. Tell us a little bit about your family. Were your parents interested in this field? What did they feel when you picked to excel in this field? But as you said,
My
you didn't
father,
exactly make the decision. So we'll stick to the first part of the question.
my father made the decision, but I don't regret. I don't regret. I don't know what he saw. So he wanted me, actually, he wanted me to do MSc chemistry and then become a teacher. I became a lecturer in a college. I think I fulfilled his wishes. And on the day when I received my award in Delhi from central ministers, he was so elated. I think that is the happiest day in his life. I think I fulfilled my duty.
That sounds wonderful. The National Cadet Corps is a tri-service organization comprising the Army, the Navy, and the Air Wing, engaged in grooming the youth of the country into disciplined and patriotic citizens. The NCC in India is a voluntary organization which recruits cadets from high school and higher secondary schools. The cadets are given a basic military training in small arms and parades. As an NCC officer, you've presented the guard of contingent in the Republic Day parade in Delhi. What was the experience with NCC like, and how did you climb the ladder all the way up to where you were as an NCC officer?
In school itself, I started in high school. I did my A1, A2 certificates. When it came to degree, I did my B certificate and C certificate, the highest in NCC. Now, what you learn from NCC? The discipline you learn. Punctuality is another thing which you learn. You have to cooperate with people. You have to, along with your friends, you have to work. That is very important for you. Obeying orders is another very important thing you learn. You will learn your self-respect. You become patriot. I remember one incident in my officer's life. I had my training in Comty, that is the officers training camp in Comty. They have a course there. I went there. The previous day, we all arrived in Comty. We all slept, we were tired. The next day morning, we had to be on the parade ground at 6 a.m. We arrived at the parade ground, you won't believe, at 6:02. We were all officers, all lieutenants, captains, majors. We were all officers. The parade was conducted by one's Havildar. He is not an officer. He said, Saiban, come on, double up. You go one round. So we had to go round. We had to obey. We can't say, no, I am an officer, you are a lonely man. No. So we learn discipline. We learn punctuality when we join NCC. I'm really very happy. I was going through the new education policy of 2020 that is going to be introduced by our present government. There they have introduced, they are going to make NCC compulsory. I felt very happy. Our youngsters need that discipline, need that punctuality lesson, need that patriotism. I think that is going to help them in that. And I still fondly remember the day I presented the Guard of Honor to the President of India. It is a great privilege to walk along with a great man. I felt elated. The few steps I took him round, introduced to the cadets and all that. And that is a memorable event in my life.
That sounds so wonderful. When was this?
It was in 1975, I remember. I was still young. And that year I was selected to lead the Karnataka contingent to Delhi for Republic Day parade. I was the youngest officer there. About 12 people competed in that. I was the youngest one, but somehow they felt that you are more suited for that. So I am elated. Though, unfortunately, I couldn't go because my principal that day said, no, you can't go. I'm not going to permit you. But that opportunity was made good when I presented guard of honor to the president when he came down to Mysore.
Definitely must have been one of the proudest moments in your life, wasn't it?
Really, really. I cherish it even today. I have the photos even today. I cherish it. Unforgettable moments in life.
You mentioned that you did a little research on curcumin orange. Would you like to tell us some fun facts about that?
So after my post-graduation, I decided to do some research. I was more interested in organic chemistry before starting teaching. I felt I should get some more education. So I started working on curcuminoids. I was working on, so it becomes too laborious for somebody else to learn about it, listen about it. But I was talking about it, working about the ketoenol tautomerism, we call about. So I was working on that to separate the ingredients in curcumin. That is what we get from turmeric. So it was a very good experience. I could learn a lot from that. That research helped me in my teaching. Research means you have a lot of patience. You will not succeed in the first instant. Never happens in research. You have to go on, repeat. Finally, you arrive at the conclusion, you get the proper result. So that is taught by research. That helped me a lot in my teaching also. Perseverance, patience, that was taught by the research.
It's a very niche area, and it's pretty cool to know that somebody would like to research on the smallest of things. So tell us about this. From being a HOD of chemistry department for 29 years, you would have interacted with thousands of students, some who are interested in the subject and some who merely sit in class without an option. What is the secret to make the students enjoy the subject like you do?
As you said, not all come by choice. They join by chance. That holds good. I think only the later part of my service I saw. My students started thinking about what they want to become, what they want to study, where do they stand, what is their idea, and all that came a bit later. In the early part of my teaching, either they were prompted by their parents or their uncles, aunts to take up something and they used to come. So it's a heterogeneous crowd. All were not interested. To make a person who is not interested to be interested, it's a very big task. A teacher has to have a lot of patience, as I said. Patience is the virtue a teacher must possess. And I don't believe in using bombastic words in a class. I don't want to become a Johnson. I think you have heard of Johnson, a great English writer. He never believed in simplicity. He believed only in writing bombastic language. If you wanted to say a person stood up, he used to say his horizontality became verticality. That is the way he used to put. So that kind of language is not necessary. You tell the children the simplest language possible. You never make the children get bored in a class. Make it as interesting as possible. You should be always smiling, have a smiling face. Interact with the children. Find out who is lagging behind. That is the greatest art of a teacher. The teaching is both an art and a science. The art part of it will make you a very good teacher. The science part of it is okay, you know the subject and all that. The art part of it will make you a very good teacher possible. So you should know, you should be a psychologist. You should know what is going through the mind of the child, whether he likes it, whether he is understanding. What is his problem? If you can understand that, if you can realize that, you will become a very good teacher. And difficult subjects, you must make it as simple as possible. As I said, simplicity is one of the virtues necessary. And when the concept is not understood by children, you try to give nearer to life examples. That way, you can make the children understand. So I used to do that. When a child feels it is very difficult. Now, if I can dwell upon one simple example, I think some of the people who are listening to this may feel it is not possible to assimilate, but at least they can understand a part of it. There is one concept in chemistry where we talk about what happens when they increase the temperature of a reaction. When you say when the temperature increases by 10 degrees Celsius, the rate becomes a double. But at the same time, same chemistry tells you that when 10 degrees Celsius temperature is increased, the energy boost is only 2%. The child will not be able to understand when there is improved, when the boost is only 2%, why the velocity becomes 200%. The child may not be in a position to understand. So I used to give them a small example. I used to say passing marks for an examination is 35%. So 30 students have got through the examination. Sir, what happens in life, what happens in exam, many of the students will be hovering around 33, 34. So I used to say, oh, government decides to give 2% addition to the exam, to the marks as grace. So what happens now, children? All the children who have got 33 and 34 will end up passing. So there are 30 in the cadre. So what has become now? 60. What is the boost they are given is only 2%. What is the result? It has become double. So tell them what is nearer to life. Then they understand better. Use such examples. Make it simple. That is what they say. I somehow keep on telling my younger generation teachers, if you teach only the syllabus, you get your salary. If you teach beyond the syllabus, you get the respect of the children, respect of the students. That is how I think you have to work. You go prepared with it. That day's lesson. You have to put in more work at home. Think a lot. Make it simple. Make them love the subject. Then you become a good teacher. That's what I feel.
Sounds so good. Now I understand how I started liking organic chemistry. I still remember that you used to tell me the very basics of all that I could know in 10th standard. And in 11th and 12th, when they went on to teach further into those concepts, I really was able to understand because you made me understand like that. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
As per government requests to educate students all over the state, you've too to educate students and mentor teachers over the state. Where would you say our education system stands?
See, I blame the present education system. But unfortunately, teachers, as you know, are powerless to do anything. Only the government has to do. So the education system, what we have is actually coined by Lord Macaulay, an Englishman, who wanted only Indians to become clerks. So that system of education dwells mainly on rote memory. The children are made to memorize certain thing. I used to say vomit it on the examination. If you vomit it properly, the teacher will like it and you will get marks. So what about the practical education? It is not there at all. So I used to tell them, you are an electrical engineer, if your fuse blows in your house, your BE degree is not going to help you how to put the fuse. I have seen such people. But practical education was not there. Only theory, we used to study theory and all that. That never helped our children. I'm very happy now. National education policy is thinking about all that. And we are going to improve it. Because the generation has changed. I belong to the generation what we call baby bloomers, born between 1946 and 64. So my system of education, what I see, my vision is quite different. But we are now moving to Generation X, Generation Y, and Generation Z. So I have gone through, I have seen people, I have interacted with Generation X, Generation Y, and Generation Z. A lot of changes are there. Their minds are able to absorb quite a lot. They have started the process of thinking. They are able to assimilate. So the old system of education is not enough. So we have to modernize our education. It has to be more practical. In the old system, what we had was a teacher-centric education. It centered around the teacher. Now, what we don't call them a teacher, we call them as facilitators. They facilitate the process of learning now. That is why we say a facilitator or a teacher. It is teacher-centric. Knowledge, source of knowledge was limited. I still remember when I used to represent my college in quiz, all India Radio quiz, I used to spend a lot of time in library. That's all. I never had a chance to Google and find out what I want. I used to go through general knowledge books and all that. We never had that. So the old system of learning, the source for knowledge is very limited. The knowledge is more bookish, not practical. That I used to feel whenever I go out and teach, mentor the students, mentor the teachers, I felt something is lacking. But the present day teaching, what we want is more student-centric. There we had only memorizing and writing whatever they have learned, never trying to understand. But now we have more interaction with the children. So my days, that much interaction was not there between the teacher and the taught. Now we find that there is more interaction and more chance for the development of all gifts the child has. They can develop whatever they want. That can be facilitated in the present thing. That can all-round development is possible. The source of knowledge has become immense. Not only books, not only the teacher, not only the facilitator. You have got the internet. You can Google. The source of knowledge is very, 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 very large. So unlimited access is there. So we have to move in that direction. We have to become more practical than theoretical. So we had only theoretical. I am very happy that in the national education policy now, they are thinking of vocational education even from 5th standard. They are proposing 10 days camp during that from 5th standard to 8th standard. Then further. So they are going to interact with potters, cobblers, and all carpenters for 10 days. So a new approach is necessary. That is what I felt. Whenever I was in the curriculum committee, whenever I wanted to introduce something new, I had no choice at all. So even I simply remember when I wanted to start certain changes in practical examination, I was told by the top person in the department, no. In the government, no. You think about the rural areas, they don't have the facility. You can't think of. But now we are moving far away from that. I think we can improve further. That is what I felt when I was going around the state of Karnataka, meeting several students, meeting teachers, educating them, mentoring them. I felt there is inadequacy. I think that is going to be removed now. That interaction helped me as well as helped the children, helped the teachers.
It's good to know that we have a lot more things to look forward to, as you're saying. Old and new make warp and woof of every moment. There is no thread that is not a twist of these two strands. And we very well know that the old ways won't open new doors. In India, we know that the central state board follow a very monotonous paper book exam method. As I myself am a part of the Gen Z, I know for a fact that the way we process information is far, far different from the way the Gen X and the Gen Y does. Whilst the minds of people changed tremendously over the years, the curriculum and methods of learning stayed put. What are the changes you've observed since you've personally interacted with all Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z? What reforms would you like to bring into such systems?
Yes, I had the good fortune of teaching Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z. And I used to see a lot of changes. Nowadays, children are more technically advanced, I feel. They are more informed. They have got better absorption power. They have got a stomach to learn so many things. They are hungry. They want to take up knowledge, whatever knowledge that comes in their way. So I feel whatever I saw, say Gen X, I used to feel that they were not so good in that making decisions and all that. They had to depend on their parents or their elders. As we moved from generation X to generation Y, I could feel that generation gap has decreased. Formerly, we used to say, oh, 20 years, oh, father and son, there is a lot of generation gap. So what are the days difference? Maybe 20 years, 30 years difference. But what has happened? When I moved from generation X to generation Y, I could feel the children have changed a lot. The students have changed a lot. They want to learn still better. They are not happy with whatever way we are teaching, only the notes, only talking about what is present in the syllabus. Nothing more than that. No practical experience, nothing. When we moved from that, so they became more and more demanding. But what I felt from generation X to generation Y, I could feel a lot of change. The children wanted to learn more. They were not happy. I make a statement, oh, okay, you have to approve. You should not say anything. No, they started questioning. That is a good thing that happened in generation Y. And when I moved from generation Y to Z, I think that was a later part of my teaching. So though I retired earlier, I started doing pro bono work and all that. When I started teaching those younger generation, I felt we can't satisfy them. I used to tell my teachers, dear teachers, don't go unprepared to the class. Don't tell something which is wrong. At the nth moment, if you don't know, and if they ask some question, don't simply give some answers. It used to happen in the olden days. The children never used to bother about it. They never knew that something wrong is coming out. Many of them. Some of them were really good and they used to find out. But as we move later on, when we come to Z, we find that the children are well informed because they Google and find out. So I used to tell my teachers, see, if you give a wrong answer, by chance if the child has a phone, and he can Google and tell you that what you are telling is wrong, you will get a sorry figure. So their hunger is becoming more and more. So we have to change our system of education. We used to have to give them more practical knowledge. Bookish knowledge is not going to help them. And another thing I'm feeling very happy is in the older generation, what we say is MS chemistry, MS biology. So we know only our subject. Those days have gone. So multidisciplinary changes have to take place. You have to move from one to another. So those things have to happen. So they are not happy with only studying chemistry. They may be happy, they want to know something about philosophy. They may want to know something about history. So we have to cater to the demand. So I'm very happy now, at least the national education policy, they've made a small changes now. So along with the science, suppose a person has taken science, he may be asked to take a non-science subject also. Interdisciplinary studies also are going to be made compulsory, something like that. So the children's mind wanders. Now they want more knowledge. I think we have to cater to the demand. We have to change our system of education. I'm very happy that they are going to make a minimum qualification for teachers in the next NEP, National Education Policy. If the teacher is well informed, the child also gets better informed. That is what I feel should be done. So teachers be careful. When you are going to teach the Gen Z children, they have to be doubly careful. They are better informed. They are technically savvy. That is what I tell my teachers. That is what the change I want. A thorough change in the system, the way the teachers think, the way the students think, the way the government thinks, the way management thinks, the way parents think. That is also very important now. The parents have to start thinking in a different way. Marks alone are not going to be enough. Nowadays, our children are learning that. In the olden days, only a person who gets highest mark used to get a job. Whether he really knows the practical aspect of it, doesn't matter. But everything is changing now. From marks, we are moving away to efficiency, proficiency in many things. So that change is a welcome change. That is what I see from generation, that change from X, Y to Z. I am really happy. Though I do not belong to that, but I enjoy it when I see them, how good they are. Really, really, I'm very happy.
Those are some huge changes, and as we know, without changes, we can't move forward. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about the prestigious Rashtriya Shiksha Ratan for contribution to education? Give us an insight about that and how you reached where you are.
So, as I said, a change is always permanent, we say. So, just I'm going back to whatever we have said. What is permanent in life? What is permanent in life is change. So, every system needs change. So, you're talking about the award I got. So, it happened somewhere in the late 90s, if I remember. So, the government approached me whether I can do something, because I was teaching only in English medium. I never taught in the local regional language. Somehow I don't know who told him. They approached me, the Doordarshan people approached me. They asked me whether can I teach in Kannada. I had a handicap because I studied throughout outside Karnataka. I had learned to speak Kannada, read because of my father. But my writing was not that good. So I could speak well, but my handwriting was very bad. Kannada, I never wrote in my early days. Only what my father used to ask me to write and all that. When they approached me, I said it may be difficult for me to do. But somehow I felt that I have to do it. Because my icon I have, the man I respect, two people I respect a lot in my life. One, Napoleon Bonaparte. The other is Swami Vivekananda. Napoleon used to say, nothing is impossible. Impossible is the word found in the dictionary of fools. So I remembered that. I said, yes, sir, I will do it. Yes, madam. The director was a lady. I said, all right, I'll try to do it. So I prepared a lot. She told me that it will be for 3 or 4 episodes. So it is going to be broadcast under UGC program. So they said you are considered as the UGC expert in chemistry. So why don't you give 4 episodes of 15 to 20 minutes on Saturdays? She said, yes, I said. So it started as a 4-episode program, but you'll be surprised. I went on doing 24 episodes in chemistry in Kannada. So I used to get a lot of letters after the weekend classes. So I followed whatever method I used to make it as simple as possible. And they used to love, even the physical chemistry part of it, they used to love. I still remember when I did catalysis, I got hundreds of letters from the students appreciating what I have done. So that was recognized. Then they said, for your contribution to teaching in the local language and the regional language, an award is going to be given. Then I flew to Delhi and I received the award from the central minister. That was one of the proudest days in my life. So usually I don't go after awards and all that. Recently, when another organization asked me to send my data and all that, I told them no, my resume, I am not going to send, I am not for any award. I don't apply for any award. If you want to give, we can give. But I cherish that award. Still, I remember very well. So, and to tell you one thing, Ananya, more than his awards, if we can live in the heart of the children, heart of the students, that is the greatest award to get. When you feel loved by the students, when they know that you have contributed in their growth, when they have expressed that feeling, that is the greatest thing you can have in your life. I still remember one incident. So I went to attend the marriage of one of my old students. He turned a sick industry into a gigantic industry. When he took over from his father, it was a sick industry. Today it is worth hundreds of crores. Business they are doing. They are into defense and so many things. When I went to attend his marriage, the words he spoke I still remember. That is still ringing in my ears. He introduced me to his wife, and told him, he is the person who made me what I am today. I felt like Ambani on that day. Ambani was not there that period. I felt like a Tata or a Birla on that day, the richest person. So I felt very happy. Those things bring more happiness than anything. Any good teacher, I feel. Nowadays, I am very unfortunate. Our teachers, I used to say there is a lot of difference between old generation teachers and new generation teachers. Old generation teachers used to lead more dedicated, more devoted. They were very simple living, high thinking. They used to love the children. They used to know the defects in each child, the problems in the case of each child and all that. And now, unfortunately, I don't say all of them. Some of the younger generation are more self-centered, more think about the economics of the business, how much they are going to get and all that. But they are more technically savvy, technically informed, but lacking in application. But as a teacher, when a child tells you that you have contributed to my life, you have done wonderful things to me, I have changed a lot. What I am today is because of you. I think that is the greatest award a teacher can get in his life. I'm very fortunate. Many occasions I've heard my students telling me that. And I'm extremely happy. That gives me the satisfaction. A teacher may be poor, but he is respected. You have to value him by the respect he commands, not with the money he earns. So he's the most satisfied man in his life, a good teacher. That's what I feel.
Sounds
I don't know how
absolutely
you feel.
wonderful. That to commend somebody with their respect and their wealth. Okay, we'll conclude now, but tell us a little bit about how you became an aficionado for drama. And you told me that you used to travel around to take part in drama. So tell us a little bit about that and then we'll conclude.
I think it is in my blood. My grandfather, a very handsome man, I have not seen him at all. He died long before. And my youngest uncle had seen him only. When he died, my youngest uncle was only 4 years old. A very handsome man. He used to enact in dramas. Maybe that came in my blood. So when I joined as a lecturer, we had a very good team of lecturers. For 3 or 4, we had a lot of interest in dramatics. So we started enacting dramas. So we used to get, it was so much loud. On the college day, students used to demand, sir, one drama must be from the staff. You 4 or 5, you have to enact a drama. So every year we used to enact 3 or 4 dramas in the college. So we became so popular that we used to get invited from people from outside our college. So we used to travel to some other places in Mysore, nearby Mysore, other districts. We used to go and enact plays. Some incidents in the enacting also is very green in my memory. I still remember, drama means a lot of practice. One of my friends, lecturer, was very much interested to be a part of our team. We 4 or 5 were very good in acting and all that. He said, I also want an act. But unfortunately, what happened? We had no time to practice. Drama means a lot of practice. You have to know the catchword. The catchword, once the other person has to listen to it, and once he catches the catchword, he has to deliver his dialogue. Unfortunately, we never had any practice at all. But the 5 of us, we had enacted at least more than 100 dramas. So we knew that he said, we gave him a small role. He was waiting for the catchword. That day, the dialogue was not in the books at all. We wrote our own dialogues. That day, we formed our own. We started talking. So he lost his patience. He forgot that we are on the stage, and he started shouting, no, stop. I have not delivered any dialogue at all. Please stop, he said. That incident I remember very well in my life. Such things happened. I loved that drama. It gives a satisfaction. I think it is a kind of forgetting everything, your work, your pressure and all that. And you become a new man on the stage. So I used to love it a lot. Later on, of course, we stopped that and all that, because every one by one, they retired and all that. So no more than that. But I enjoy fine arts and all that. The love for music still persists in me.
That sounds great. Thank you for being here with us today. I think it would be appropriate to conclude by saying Nelson Mandela said that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. So thank you for being here with us.
Okay, I want to mention Nelson Mandela. He also said, education, he said, talked about it. He said, in education, if you do malpractices, copying and all that, if you do that, that is the biggest weapon that can damage the entire country. So he said, we have to avoid all this in education. He said, no, atomic bomb is not necessary. Guns are not necessary. Bullets are not necessary to destroy a country. But in education, if you do copying, malpractices, that can destroy a nation. So really, I'm very happy that you brought Nelson Mandela's name. I'm happy that you gave an opportunity for me to speak about my experiences. I really loved it. Thank you very much, Ananya. Thank you, Anavarana.